Hey YouTube, welcome back to the Obi-Thorian Alliance. What are we doing in today's video, Jacob?
We're doing, since Black Panther came out, our Phase 4 final thoughts about it.
So stick around if you want to see what we have to say about Phase 4 and what we're looking forward to in maybe Phase 5. So stick around. So Phase 4
It's finished.
It's finished. It's been a fairly
shaky, but
I wouldn't say it was as eventful as Phase
3,
but Phase 4. So what is some of the content we've got in Phase 4 to recap those people that may not know the distinguish where we've changed from 3 to 4?
Black Widow, Shang-Chi, The Eternals, Thor: Love and Thunder, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man: No Way Home, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
So for me, Phase 4 seems like it hasn't really been eventful. It's kind of setting up for Phase 5, but itself as a phase has been more of a
all over the shop.
It's been some origin stories, it's been some one-off like mini-series kind of things. It's been pretty hit and miss with some good content, some pretty poor content. It's been an iffy phase. How would you summarize the phase?
All over the shop, and some really hits, and some really in the middles, and some like doozies that you go, oh, not really so good. So really, unlike Marvel.
What was the worst thing you reckon in Phase 4?
Movie or show?
Go show. What was your worst show?
Miss Marvel, because it just had potential, and I think the expectations were there, but it just ended in such way when I'm actually not looking forward to seeing Miss Marvel again.
I'm really caught up whether it's Miss Marvel or Moon Knight. Moon Knight was very disappointing and had lots of potential. It had some cool scenes and themes, but I just had this real sour taste about it. Miss Marvel was kind of boring and uninteresting, but it was visually really cool. Some of the artwork things they did, I don't mind the character as such. Its origin story was a bit odd. I don't know. Moon Knight had expectations up here and end up falling down here, where Miss Marvel I expected almost nothing and got nothing. So I don't know which is worse, expecting nothing and getting nothing, or expecting a lot and getting nothing. So I'm going to say it's a tie. I can't split the two. I think they're both equally as bad or as disappointing. In movies, what was your least favourite movie out of the...
Black Widow.
Black Widow was your least favourite. Why was that?
I just found it uneventful. I just, basically nothing mattered. Even though we got Red Guardian, he was the highlight, but, we basically got Black Widow as Natasha jumping off without a parachute, and we know she's going to survive. And I hate those sort of movies that there's plot armor for the character, and the villain was just boring and uneventful, and it was just a nothing movie, I'm sorry to say. And I just don't buy that this secret base was up in the sky and no one knew it was there.
There is lots of plot holes in that movie, but I actually liked it. I'm not saying it was great, but I don't...
I did see it twice, though.
Yeah, I quite liked it, and I do know that they've kind of bought it out just so that Black Widow could... Yeah, so she could have her own movie, because the other Avengers each got their own kind of...
Hawkeye didn't get it.
He got a show, but yeah, so she hadn't really got her own standalone thing, so... Based on that, I guess that means I have to put Shang-Chi as the worst, because all the others I think were pretty damn good. So Shang-Chi, I guess it's a hero that I really didn't care too much about. I didn't really enjoy the whole, I don't know, things trying to escape through this wall, and they're protectors, and they got this dragon. The whole premise of how the rings gave him power was very kind of unclear, and I don't really know what his powers are with the rings. Visually, it had some cool scenes, fighting the bus and, going through San Francisco, had some cool spots. But yeah, I think that was probably the worst movie. We got maybe the Kang and Abomination crossover.
Wong.
Yeah, Wong and Abomination. Seeing them cameo was pretty cool, but beyond that, yeah, pretty lackluster. I didn't care too much for it, sadly. Favorite show?
Favorite show, Loki.
Yeah. Why'd you like Loki so much?
I just think the storytelling, I agree with you. It has the first best episode out of any Disney Plus show. Acting, performance, storytelling with the whole mystery, finding out what the TVA are, who's behind it all, and just each episode wanting more information, and really looking forward to season 2. And I can see why people would say WandaVision, and I think it's between Loki and WandaVision.
I think WandaVision was my favourite show, but I swapped between these two in a few of the different lists we've done. But I think in terms of the best out of the Phase 4, I'm going to go Loki because it is the best thing in Phase 4 because it really sets up Phase 5. A lot of the other things in Phase 4 are kind of like, how did Kamala Khan get her powers? And how did a lot of it's kind of nothing. That was like a good setup. So I like that. I think that's that, and Doctor Strange have really set something up there. So I think Loki doing it in a show form. It's not my favorite Disney Plus show or Marvel show, but it is the best thing for Phase 4. Where WandaVision I think is just generally amazing. It does set up. It sets up a setup. It sets up the movie for Doctor Strange, which then sets up Phase 4. But Loki itself, the fact we got to see Kang, I think it's the best content for Phase 4.
What is your favourite movie?
Favorite movie? I'm big Spider-Man fan. I thought that was really, really cool. Very close in terms of what I liked. Spider-Man. I think the crossover and people entering his multiverse was cool, and then obviously the cameo of all the other Spider-Mans and finally getting the meme and then pointing at each other. It did everything people wanted to, but not in a cheesy way. So I think that's my number one for this Phase 4.
I'm going to go the same. My favourite movie from Phase 4 was Spider-Man No Way Home. I think it told a genius story and had nostalgia as well, and it was the best cinema experience I had from Phase 4 since the 2 Avenger movies, and I think it shows that you can do great cinema storylines and have meaning to them, and unfortunately I don't think the other movies did as much as Spider-Man No Way Home.
I do have to give credit to Doctor Strange. I think they took a gamble with going this more horror route, and I think it was cool. I really enjoyed it. It's close second, but Spider-Man No Way Home, I think the crossover of Spider-Man's is flawless, and then adding villains from each of theirs and it's very cool. It's something that we haven't really seen yet. We've seen multiverses, but we haven't seen multiverses where it brings in characters and because people always go, oh, why is there 3 Spider-Mans? How do you have 3 versions of Spider-Mans? Well, let's make a movie, refer to them as multiverses and combine them, and you go, wow, that changes everything now. We can have 1 million Spider-Man and I don't care because I understand that that's just from a different multiverse. So it's pretty damn cool.
So what do you feel like has been the problem with Phase 4? Do you think it's been the writing, the direction, Marvel fatigue, or a mixture of all those elements?
I think we've got Marvel fatigue. We've just finished off a big major phase with Thanos. They wanted to bring in some new characters, and I think they wanted to test out what Disney Plus could do.
Yeah.
They wanted to go, well, this is our opportunity to make some kind of quirky content, and it's not going to get put at a movie, so we can get away with it. And I didn't really like the quirky content, but I'm sure people probably love it. I think Miss Marvel was odd. I think Moon Knight was hit and miss, so I think it was them experimenting, Marvel fatigue, partial break for their actors so they can get ready, and then just maybe some quirky ideas. I think Thor Love and Thunder is one that stands out to me that I think was just odd.
Yeah.
I really like Thor. I think the previous Thor movies have been great. Thor's gone on a wild journey of, the way his character is being portrayed, and obviously changing directors. I think Taika Waititi was a breath of fresh air in Ragnarok, but I think in Thor: Love and Thunder, it just went berserk with the comedy, just too much. Like it just needed to be dialed down a bit. It came across almost dumb. So, but the movie was entertaining and just need to be dialed down a bit. So they've gone with, I think it's just experimenting. So Marvel fatigue, experimentation, having a bit of a break, and they've kind of killed off a couple of major characters, and then I guess there was a chance for them to experiment, and I don't know how to word this, but they've kind of gone with they're trying to be a bit more woke, they've gone, well, let's try and
bring more females.
Yeah, so females is one part of it, so I'm all for that, but this phase they've experimented with, handing over the mantelpiece from a male character to a female version in a few instances. We're starting to see a bit more of that in the in what we've on forever. We're starting to see Ironheart take over for Iron Man. We're starting to see, Black Panther change to, what are we going to call it, the Black Pantheress? I don't know. It's a female now. We're starting to see like more female superheroes coming out. We're seeing their own independent movies with, Black Widow. So it's been very much a phase of that. And I'm not saying that's what made it poor, because it wasn't poor. It's just experimenting and kind of changing the formula a bit. So the next phase we'll get to see probably all their plans come to action. So that's my thought. They're changing and experimenting, and it's a crossover phase. It happens, it happens in sporting teams. You have a dynasty, and then suddenly your players need to retire, and you got to rebuild your team, and it takes a few seasons, because you're not going to kick out your best players whilst they're winning, but there's a point where they're going to get too old and they have to be replaced, and you didn't have a backup plan because you couldn't afford the backup plan because you're focusing on your stars. So that's kind of what I think Marvel's happened.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, in the rebuilding phase.
Do you feel like Disney Plus has helped with Phase 4, kind of hindered it? I would say with 2 exceptions, but the others are kind of not as good, but 2 have...
I don't know if it's hindered it, but it's allowed them to be experimental, which could be a good thing. For us as the consumers, we can look at that and go, oh, I wish they didn't make that. But for them, they got a chance to make it and probably did it cheaper with less risk, You can just opt out of watching Miss Marvel if you want. But if they put it at the movies, it's a large expense, and if people don't show up to it, then it looks like a flop, where everyone will talk about, like, oh, see the new movie that Marvel brought out? No one went to see it. And you go, oh, what a flop. They bring it out on Disney Plus. You don't hear people saying, oh, what a... Like, you've either seen it and you talk about it, or you're like, oh, really? That came out? I haven't heard of it. I might check it out. It doesn't get bad publicity because you can opt. You're not really forced to watch it, or it's not as big of a deal, where if you bring out a movie and it flops, people talk about it.
Agree with that.
Yeah, so it's not hindered them, it's just allowed them to experiment a bit more, where if streaming services weren't a thing and it was blockbuster movies only, we definitely wouldn't have got a Moon Knight movie. Miss Marvel wouldn't have got anything, and so it's allowed them to see a few more things, because even though I didn't love those things, Miss Marvel and Moon Knight could be someone out there's favourite too, because there's a Marvel content. So they're servicing everyone, I guess.
And do you feel like with the story as well, like there's no direction, and with this new phase, people feel like the writers are wasting their time? That's what I kind of feel like is going on.
No, there's definitely, I wouldn't say there's no direction. They've got a master plan. They already know phase 10 by now, probably. They're planning it out. We're just in we're in the rebuilding phase, because if it's just crazy content constantly, big villains one after another, they're going to really wear themselves out and like take a gamble on a few flops and losing money. So they're pacing it out. The longer they take to pace something out, the more time you're going to subscribe to their service. So it's just money. It's more money. So they can take all the time they want. You think of some of your favourite movies, and, if they have sequels, and when you've got to wait for them to come out, that anticipation builds. So they could do that, and it'd probably get more people want to see it anyway. So they're just holding on to you. I think of the Batman movie that came out this year. Absolutely loved it. They were the thought that you might have to wait multiple years for the next one to come out upsets me. So they've got me waiting on it. So Marvel can kind of do the same thing, and they can, you know, have that rebuild phase, and you're waiting for the next big thing to come out. So they know what they're doing. They're playing it.
So what would your score be for Phase 4, and then we'll talk about Phase 5?
Phase 4 score, maybe a B minus. Yeah, I think it was some real, as a phase, not that much happened. It's a setup phase. Phase 3 was a big phase, and Phase 5 is a big phase. This is just the build phase between the two phases. Try and say that fast. And so they built, so it's like a build up, and we've got some mega content in there with Loki, WandaVision, and No Way Home. So, well, this was the introduction of the multiverse phase, really. That's what it's been. So I'm happy with that. The rest of the content, I think, was a bit, you know, whatever. It's just, it's there, but it's that's not really part of the building phase. That's just content, you know. That they're just content. The real deal is the Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and WandaVision.
And Loki.
That's the real deal. The rest is just, you know, whatever.
I'm going to go with a B. I think it's been a setup phase, like what Luke said, but it's kind of, you know, it's been really highs and really lows, but I'm really looking forward to the multiverse saga. Leading up to Phase 5, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania looks absolute amazing, and we can see a clear goal of what the storyline is going to be. And in that note, Phase 5, what's your thoughts?
Really looking forward, because I think we're going to see this multiverse come to life. So we've seen a character like, you know, Doctor Strange being able to go between multiverses and introducing America who can swap between them. Like, you know, we've seen Doctor Strange open up portals that, you know, allowed people to come into their multiverse. We're kind of trying to wrap our head around how Kang works and how he has the TVR and what they can do, and getting thrown into that Wanda was able to create like a multiverse inside her universe where, you know, people weren't aware they were under her spell. Like, we're seeing really cool things of what they can do with time and space, and then we're about to see how that interacts with quantum mania and using quantum physics and going to the quantum realm, and maybe that might explain it all. As the quantum realm, does that mean, like, in our individual particles we see, is there a smaller universe inside of that? Like, there's lots to work out. So we get, like, it's expanding the universe by, you know, 1,000,000 times. So it's I'm very intrigued to see how they're going to do this and how they fight across quantum realm and our realm and between multiverse and other multiverses. So it's very intrigued to see how they're going to do it. And it's going to probably mess with a lot of people's heads.
Yeah, well, Kane is a character. There's so many versions of him. He always comes back.
And I'm just intrigued how that ties in with the quantum realm, and what, are they the same thing or are they something completely different? So I'm very intrigued to see what happens there.
And your excitement levels for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It's my most hyped up MCU movie.
It's pretty high. It's out of the ones that are coming out in the foreseeable future, I'm looking forward to it the most.
Yeah. So, bottom line, Phase 4 of the MCU, do you think it will go down as forgettable out of all the MCU phases when we're up to like Phase 6 and we'll go, oh, it was just a muck around phase?
I think so. I think what we'll find is the big players like your Loki and the Spider-Man, No Way Home, and Doctor Strange, they'll kind of merge into Phase 5, and we'll forget that they were separate phases. We'll think they're one and the same. And Phase 4 will be remembered for, you know, well, it won't be, it'll be forgotten. It'll just be, oh, that's the one where Moon Knight came out in, kind of thing.
Do you agree with the theory that someone has that each movie, and this is why the story seems all over the place, that each movie is in a separate universe with the multiverse? It would seem very confusing to explain to people.
I think ones that haven't crossed over yet, it's possible, but where we've seen direct crossovers, no. They have to be the same universe. Doesn't make sense otherwise.
Yeah. Well, thank you for watching. We are the Obi-Thorn Alliance. Like and subscribe. Let the Force be with you. As always, there's a video at the end. You are awesome. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.